Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world passeth away, and the lust therein. But he that doeth the will of God abideth forever. Grace, mercy, and peace to my brothers and sisters in Christ. We are at war. It's time to realize that. Like Paul said, finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might, right? We must put on his mightiness. Now, I don't mean to discourage my brothers, but or to exalt myself. I've gone through that whole business. I'm 37 years old now, and I've gone through the whole youthful, rock and roll, assert my own dominance phase, and I've done my fair share of rounds around the American churchianity. I've studied a lot of the denominations, so I'm not speaking in pride when I speak against the different denominations, and kind of what I would perceive as what I truly think is baby Christian type behavior. But I think all of us are kind of stunted in that sense just by design, because let's face it, if you're in America, we're in an extremely debaucherous environment, and those types of things stunt spiritual growth. It's done by design. And while God is graceful and forgiving to our infirmities and to our weaknesses, he has an expectation of us. And that's really the grievous sin that the American churches partake in, is this God that has no expectation of us, right? And I desire to do combat with that ideology, right? God just doesn't expect anything out of us because Christ did it all, right? No, on the contrary, Christ speaks on how we will have the capacity to do greater things. Not that we are greater, but that through his teachings, we are given the ability to do things, do the impossible, right? I am a former soldier, so I think in terms of war fighting, right? So if we got to cross a bridge and one of my men, right, goes out in front, takes the front, and lays himself down on the barbed wire, right, that allows me to go through that passage, and I got to get through that window that he's created. He laid his body down so that I could get active, right? Not so I could sit there and make excuses. And that's what Jesus has done, metaphorically. What he's done is he's laid his life down on that barbed wire, and we got to get up over him, walk over his sacrifice, and do battle with the enemy. A lot of spiritual warfare in these days is really disarming that fact that he just laid his life down so we could sit there and draw straws as to who it is that's going to go to task. Well, if we're all going to sit here and make a play of Christianity, that's your business. But my business is Christ's business. And Christ's business isn't about safety first. It's not about my safety first. So we got to get out there and put pressure And how do we put pressure? We reject these psychological games that the enemy plays. Like, I can't overcome sin and things of this nature. Also, what you tend to notice too is that, say if you do overcome sin and then you share it with your brethren, all of a sudden you're prideful. I've noticed that, and I grew up in a Luciferian household, so I know the games. And the Lord pulled me out of that for a reason. Not to cower, in fear and woe is me type behavior. I understand that I am a worthless sinner. But Christ has purchased me with his blood. And now I walk as a new man in Christ Jesus. Will I stumble? Peter stumbled. But that's not really what I'm going to be focusing on in my walk, is the stumbling. What I'm to be focusing on is going after the Christ, who is Jesus. And we have his testimony in the word. And he calls us to walk in his ways, not walk in our own excuses. So, for example, as a man, I used to struggle, say, for example, a common struggle is the idolatry of the female figure, right? That's one the devil likes to get on us nice and early, especially in this country. It's acceptable to, engage in explicit content. Oh, it's a manly thing to do. It's actually effeminate, the opposite of masculine. Because if you think about it, when you're engaging in explicit content, you're not actually doing anything. You're romanticizing the female figure, but you're not actually engaging with a woman, if you understand my line of thought here. So if you can look at how deceptive the devil is, you're actually not even experiencing what it is you're desiring. My people perish for lack of knowledge, right? So if you just stop to think, well, I'm not actually engaging in what it is I'm desiring. And if you're married, you sure as heck are supposed to have that, how would you say, reserved. So that table at the restaurant is supposed to be reserved. And we reserve that through action. We don't get complacent. So as a Christian, we're always to be on the defensive. But I think that the American Christianity is so effeminate, we don't even really understand what defense is. We think that defense is like rolling over and getting in the fetal position. That's not a defensive posturing. Oh, I just can't do it. And I've been there. I've gone through that walk, and I've also gone through the part where you think, well, I can do this on my own. I'm done getting my butt kicked by sin. I'm just going to try this. I'm just going to strong arm this. That doesn't work either. It's really going through that narrow path with God, surrendering the fact that you can't do it of yourself, but at the same time, there's a wisdom that needs to be applied, that although you can't do it of yourself, there is a part of yourself that needs to be surrendered. And once you surrender yourself, it becomes the fight becomes much easier. It really does. A whole different kind of warfare opens up for you, because now you're not fighting against the will of God, because you're surrendered to him. And in regards to explicit content, that it's actually been years since I've even engaged in any of that propaganda. And that's a victory. And just because I bring it up doesn't mean it's prideful. Why I'm bringing it up is because I glorify Christ, because there was no way for me to get out of that mess without him. I know it 1,000% positive. And he's the one that sustains that position, or else those same temptations and those same devils and demons would just overpower my position and retake their authority over me. Because what we're doing is wrestling with very evil creatures that don't give up their territory very easily, because they know where they're going if they lose their territory. More warfare. So this warfare terminology, where an enemy is most dangerous when his back's against the wall, when he has everything to lose. In desperate firefight situations, it actually serves the leader or team leader of, say, an infantry unit to allow his brothers to think that there's no way out. Because when there's no way out, a dog is its most dangerous, right? And in warfare, spiritual warfare, you have to be dangerous. And these churches just want to teach us how to play patty cake with the devil. Just straight up. Because they aren't doing their job. We're not here to play patty cake. We're here to punch the devil in the throat and take his lunch money. Because that's what Jesus did, if you haven't figured it out yet. The devil is the god of this world. How plain does that the Bible have to put it? Do you know what a god is? That means he's in control. That's what God means. The Most High God surrendered through his own will the administration of this world because it's evil, and the living God has nothing to do with evil. But out of his great love for humanity, he desired a remnant, those that would rebel against the God of this world, in favor of his glorious Son. So the fact is that we have to surrender to Christ, and how we do that is we let go of our sinful habits. And how we let go of our sinful habits is we take charge. We take action. We don't make excuses. It's been about 6 years since I've exposed myself to explicit content. That's a victory. And to continue in that victory, I can't get complacent. The devil understands that those tactics aren't working, so he ups his tactics. And I've seen it, and I'm aware of it now. So it's not as easy for him to pull the wool over my eyes, right? But I'm not going to be puffing up in pride, acting like I know what I'm doing, because in the Bible it says, he that thinks he stands of his own self, prepare to fall, right? So I'm not standing on my own strength. I can do all things through Christ whom strengthens me. Not, I can do all things because I think I have a good self-esteem. And to be freed to be freed from these passions and to not be subject to them, I give glory to Jesus Christ. And I pray and I hope that all my brothers and sisters that struggle with these things gain an advantage over it. Because when you've conquered these things through our conquering Christ, whole avenues of warfare open up. He doesn't want you stuck in a foxhole struggling with loading a clip in your magazine. He wants you out there getting active and effective. And we can't do that when we're stumbling over the petty sins.